what does gutsy mean to you?
It means like feeling full of yourself and you just can't hold it in.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm Laura Ora, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. Whether it's standing up in front of your coworkers or gearing up for an important conversation with a friend or a loved one, even the idea of speaking is enough to make 75% of the population sweat. The fear of speaking goes beyond standing on stage. It affects your ability to communicate, advocate, and share impactful messages. Today, I'm chatting with speaking confidence and vocal coach Linda Ugelow about overcoming the fear of speaking at home and at work so that you can take up space, share your thoughts, and build your influence with confidence. If using your voice has felt scary and super uncomfortable, but you're ready to get past that, then today's episode is for you. Let me tell you a little bit about Linda. She is a speaking confidence and vocal coach and author of the book Delight in the Limelight. She used to be afraid of public speaking herself, but now she helps entrepreneurs and professionals transform their experience of speaking from dread to delight, whether online or on stage, in the media, or in the meeting room. Linda holds a master's degree in expressive arts therapy and movement studies and performed internationally for 4 decades with the Women's World Music Group, Labana, as a singer, bassist, percussionist, and principal dancer. She hosts the podcast Delight in the Limelight to inspire and empower individuals on their journey to confident self-expression, so definitely check that out. Listen, Linda and I dove right in when we started recording this episode for you, so let's get into it. Linda, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
I'm really happy to be here, Laura.
Oh, I just love your voice on a microphone. I remember the first time I heard you speak, we went through a program called MDA together. And the first time I heard you speak on the microphone, I was just like, oh, that just sounds dreamy.
Well, I've fallen in love with my speaking voice and I've fallen in love with helping people love their speaking voice.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about using a microphone is that it allows us to find the resonance in our voice and kind of relax in the voice. And whereas when you are speaking, to a room, depending on the size of the room and how many people are there, you may need to use your voice in a different way in order for people to be able to hear you more clearly in the back.
Right.
But here, with a microphone, you can play with going down very low, and which for me, I have to speak more quietly when I go down low. I don't have as much volume down there, but it gives me another kind of range to play with. So thank you. And I think that one of the things that I'm going to actually be speaking about this week in my community is the differences between speaking on mic and off mic.
It's an art form. I mean, there's so many different variations
Yes, yes.
of speaking and tone and techniques and
And this is what's so exciting, Laura, because speaking is our human design, and children play with their voices a lot, but they stop playing with them because they're told to behave and, or we're conditioned to be a certain way in certain situations. Maybe you've got parents that work late at night and you're told, shh, don't make noise in the house, or use your indoor voice, or don't screech like that, or and people, parents are inadvertent about it. It's not like they're being mean necessarily, but they don't realize that they're shutting children down. I think a better way, I've been wondering about this because a friend of mine who's an executive coach was telling me her son makes really screechy sounds. And I have a feeling that he does it because he knows he's going to like get a rise from her.
yeah.
And she's always saying shh to him. I think a better way could be to engage and to play with him. And through the play, bring him to another dimension of speaking. So let's say you're going, you go, and then you respond, ooh, And then they go, ooh, ooh. And all of a sudden they're in a whole other vocal space, but it's play.
Oh, that's brilliant. So it's like you're saying the same thing, but guiding them differently and also giving them permission to use their voice in different ways.
Right. And it's like, yeah, play with your voice, but you can play it here and you can play it over there and you can play it this way and that way. And then you're not saying no, you're saying yes.
That's brilliant. Oh my gosh. I'm even thinking about just psychologically how that says when a child is doing something like that, right? They're using their voice, they're being quote unquote loud or being screechy or making that funny sound again, and you tell them no. It's like saying don't touch the red button, right? What do they want to do? Slam the red button. Whereas if you invite them to do it or play with them to do it, they're probably going to get it out of their system. They're going to do the thing and then they're going to run off because they're going to hear Bluey on TV, right?
Mhm.
Or they're going to find a toy that they want to play with, or they're going to, play superheroes or whatever it is that they're doing. But they've gotten it out of their system. They're not being shut down for doing it.
Right.
So interesting.
I love the idea of redirection. I was kind of fascinated by that. I remember like struggling. I don't know why we're in this direction of our talk, but let's go there.
We're here.
We're here. I remember my trying to get my daughter out of the house. You know, transitions are hard for kids. And like every other parent's like, time to go, or in 5 minutes, we're going to go. And then 5 minutes goes by, she's not ready. And one day I had the brilliant idea of miming like throwing a rope. I say, catch the rope. And I threw it to her and she caught it. And I said, I'm going to pull you and you're going to slide towards me. And then she came and I gave her a big hug. And I said, oh, here we go into the car. And it worked. And I thought, why haven't I been doing this all my life, all of her life? Because it made it so much easier to play rather than to like fight or pull or push. It's like join them where they are, and we are the adults. We can use our imagination and with our strategy to to make it into a yes, or I'm with you, or I see you, and let's now go in this direction.
Play is so underrated. I'm kind of curious on your take of how do we do that for ourselves, because that's a really cool technique to work with other people and especially kiddos, but we're not playing ourselves. We're not playing with our voice. We're not playing with our thoughts and feelings and emotions. We're just like kind of in this right, we're in line and doing the adult thing.
Yes. Well, let's think about this. Well, what area? I mean, voice, obviously, I have a lot to say about that. But let's say you're resisting something. What I have gotten into is I like allowing whatever the resistance to speak. And I say, okay, I really don't want to do this. Let's make a list of all the things I don't want to do this for, why I don't want to. And then I see where that takes me. But it's a starting place. And this actually is exactly how I figured out how to get over my fear of speaking.
Interesting.
Because I had been on Periscope, which was the first live streaming app, pushing myself, white knuckling through it, you know, doing what I needed to do to get myself in the zone, power poses, affirmations, meditation, deep breathing, all that stuff, because I was hyperventilating. My heart was pounding. So when I realized that after 10 weeks of doing this every single day, I wasn't getting any more relaxed or confident or calm, my heart was still pounding, I decided, okay, I think I need to take a different approach. The just getting experience and just doing it is not working for me. Maybe it works for everyone else, but it wasn't working for me. So what I did is I've got this fear. What does that have to say? Just like the resistance. Okay, if I was going to ask the talk, if it could talk, what would it say? And what came back as I asked myself that was, you're going to be attacked. I went, okay, is that mean cellular memory of being chased in the Serengeti? Or have I actually been attacked in my life? And suddenly I remembered how my older sisters used to attack me all the time, particularly when mom put me in the center of attention because I was the good one and they were naughty.
Hmm.
She'd say, why can't you girls be more like Linda? And after a few times, I'm like, no, mom, don't say that. because I knew they were going to kick me. They'd torture tickle me on the floor. They would call me stupid, say shut up. And all of a sudden I went, well, duh. Of course I don't feel comfortable getting on camera or live streaming, or I was part of a women's world music group, or introducing a song on the stage, because I learned and remember somewhere inside me that it's dangerous to be put in the center of attention.
Wow.
And that awareness was what changed my career. Because first of all, it gave me an inroads to understanding, oh, at least my fear of speaking has nothing to do with talking to Laura right now, which I'm not afraid of speaking to you right now, by the way. But 9 years ago I was, 10 years ago I would have been, I should say. And this gave me the awareness that, oh, I'm not afraid because of the current situation. I'm afraid because of all those past situations. And I realized I had stuff. I had stuff. I had gotten bullied in seventh grade. My father told me things like, oh, I'm just not interested in what you do, Linda. I had was coerced sexually at a young age, or I felt uncomfortable with men looking at me. So hiding, feeling needing to hide. Anything embarrassed in front of the class, or had a mean teacher who didn't get me, all these things where I felt like I was pressured to perform, or I had to be perfect, afraid of making mistakes. Lots of stuff there was in my psychic closet, which is what I like to call it. It's a Jungian term of the psyche, the repository of all our experiences, as you know. And that I had to declutter it. Basically, I needed to clear my stuff. That all that stuff had glommed together in this big ball that was now feeling like anxiety speaking in public. I needed to tease it apart and see what was in it and forgive people, forgive myself, just do anything I could mentally, emotionally, physically. I feel like I'm missing one, spiritually perhaps, of clearing this stuff. And I am a multimodality kind of a gal. I have a master's degree in expressive arts therapy, movement studies. And so I have a lot of different kinds of tools. And I decided I'm just going to use them all because I don't know which one's going to move the needle. But in 5 days, that was it.
Really?
That was it. That was in 2015 in August.
Wow. 5 days. I think a common, there are a lot of truths, right? Some people it takes 5 days, some people it takes 5 years, some people it takes a lifetime. But I think it's really powerful to hear that it doesn't have to take that long.
It doesn't, and that's why I feel passionate about what I do, and that's why I wrote my book, Delight in the Limelight, because I realized if I had known this earlier, like I had these tools, none of these were new tools for me. I just didn't realize I had stuff that was and it was my stuff that was getting in the way of my speaking in public or speaking to anybody, even speaking to my husband.
Right. So, I'm thinking about our listener right now and, who's shaking to death standing up in a meeting to share an idea or to give some feedback, or someone that needs to have, an important conversation with a loved one that just feels terrified. It's not necessarily that situation that's making them feel terrified. It's something likely that's happened in the past. So, what do you recommend for how people can start to kind of unpack this and get to know what that stuff is, because most of it's suppressed.
Yes, it is. And it's we're so busy in our lives that our history, I mean, what do we remember of our history? Very, very little. And we're so otherwise occupied. Well, I have three ways that I suggest doing it. One way is the way I did it, is to just ask what's going on and then figuring that out. So let's say someone is in a meeting and they're really anxious. What are you feeling anxious about? What are you worried about? Are you feeling about being judged, making a mistake, that you're going to lose your reputation, that you're going to look foolish, that people won't like you? Whatever comes to your mind, those are the clues to what happened in the past. And then you say, okay, when was I not liked? For me, it was in seventh grade when all the girls said nobody talked to Linda. When did I feel foolish? Oh, it was when that teacher embarrassed me in front of the class. When did I feel judged? Oh, that was, I don't know, I can remember 10 times things like that. Probably my father feeling judged by him. So that's one way in, is figuring out what is it that you're most worried about. Or, if that anxiety can speak, what would it say? Another way that I do with my clients and in my programs, I mean, we use all of these ways, but is we take inventory. What was your relationship with your parents or whoever you grew up with, your siblings? Where did you feel supported? Where did you not feel supported? Did you receive any messages like children should be seen and not heard, or don't speak back to your elders, or don't brag, don't stand out, keep your head down? All of these messages that we might get from our families, but also from our communities or from the church or from media. Then there is school. How did you feel about yourself as a student? Did you feel smart? Did you feel stupid? Did you feel like you were always pressured to be more perfect than you felt like you were capable of? Were you worried about making mistakes like I was? I mean, actually, who hasn't been afraid of making mistakes? I feel like that's the worst of our educational system, is that they create this trauma in everyone who goes through the system, that mistakes are bad, even though we know and are taught, oh, mistakes are how we learn. But that's not the action. The action is you make a mistake, you get a mark down.
Yeah.
That is trauma that anyone who has grown up in school, you have. And I'm even, or especially, the people who are at the top of the class.
Oh, yeah, because you're held to a standard now.
You're held to a standard and you feel like your value is because you don't make mistakes.
And doesn't that create perfectionist adults?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's the second way of getting into it, is like just taking inventory of all things. And then, of course, past jobs, relationships. Where did you feel cut down? Where did you feel not accepted? Because any of these things are going to play into how we feel when we express ourselves. If you feel like, oh, people don't like me, or I'm afraid of not being accepted, of course you're going to hold back. Of course it's going to create anxiety on some level. And the third way I like to go back is more of a creative approach. It's invoking, so like before we got on this podcast, we took a moment to connect. And you can take a moment to connect anytime you're doing anything creative. I agree with doing that too. And you can do that in this process of figuring out what might have happened. So you can get into your body, do a little relaxation or connecting with yourself, and then ask the prompt, looking back over my life, when was there a time that I wanted to speak up but felt like I couldn't? Or when was a time that I spoke up and it didn't go so well? So these kinds of prompts can also bring out experiences of our lives that we may have long forgotten. But when we have it framed in that way, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember being at my friend Amy's house and she said this thing to me. And I thought I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say.
Yeah. You know what I love about this is it's getting to know the past parts of you in your life without shame, without judgment, without making it mean anything. It's literally just, oh, this is maybe why. This is where this is rooted from, and it's getting to know yourself. It's such a compassionate way to be able to move forward, because I think sometimes looking back is harsh, right? People don't want to relive memories. A lot of things are painful, especially if you've been through a traumatic situation. It's like, I don't want to go there. But to heal, we have to go there, right? We have to get to know it, but you can get to know it in such a softer way, like the techniques that you're sharing with us today. It's, I don't know, it's just very much like talking to your younger self. Or if a child, I always like to use the analogy of like, if a child were feeling big emotions, how would you want to handle that? Are we going to yell at them and tell them that they're wrong and tell them to shut up? Or are we going to get down on their level? Are we going to say, hey, tell me a little bit more about what's going on? You're having a big feeling right now. What happened? Right? That softness, that energy, it just allows things to come up in such a beautiful way. And that's what's coming up for me as you're sharing these techniques.
Yeah, what I love about what you just said is I use that as one of the healing techniques of us like imagining being with our younger self and doing exactly that. Because I think that a lot of times the things that cling on to us from our past are the ones that were unable to be resolved because we didn't have the resources or tools. We didn't have the parent or the friend or the teacher or the mentor to help us through so that we felt whole and unscathed. And so what we did is we just used what we had to cope. And oftentimes it was by shutting down or rebelling or, whatever, some kind of deviant behavior that we might have gotten into as, teenagers or whatever to handle certain situations.
Do you ever get an idea to do something new or to make a change in your world, but then inevitably your brain pops in and talks you out of it before you get started? I get you, because I've been there too. So many times, in fact, that I have developed a simplified method to help you get out of your own way in the moment. And you know what? I'm going to teach you it for free. If you go to lauraora.com/foundations, I'm going to teach you this method through a 5-day private audio experience. Each day, I'm going to send you a clear and simple method that you can implement right away so that you can start to shift those thoughts that are talking you out of it and start doing the thing that you really want to do. It's free and it's available immediately. Just go to lauraora.com/foundations and sign up. Right? We're
Yeah.
now creating the safety that we needed then, but now we're creating it within ourselves now. So we've gotten to know, right? We're remembering these situations. We're finding the root of where this stems from. Talk to me about those techniques that you used or the ones that you recommend. So we're remembering these things. How do we now transmute through them and heal through them so that we can start to take up that space and speak more confidently?
Yeah, I think there are lots of different ways to do this. Always say there are many paths to healing. I've done this work with people just through email and giving them writing prompts, journaling prompts, and they've done the work. When I work with someone privately, I love EFT, emotional freedom technique, or people know it as tapping. I learned this back in 1992, actually, when my father passed away. I had a friend at the time who was training as a transformational kinesiologist, and this was a tool she had learned. And she said, Linda, I need practice. Will you be my guinea pig? I said, sure. So, oh my God, this was so fantastic that I had a person who was just testing out all these techniques that she had been learning on me. And it was at a time, so my father and I, if you haven't guessed by now, had a troubled relationship.
I picked
And
up on that.
this was amazing because I felt like quite soon after his passing, I was able to do this work with her, and I've done other work like there was some kind of transformational breath work that I did, which I also got trained in and decided I don't want to use this technique because there are things that I personally didn't like physically that I don't like about it, and I thought I can't ask other people to go through this kind of discomfort, physical discomfort that I hated, even though the result was beneficial.
Right.
But with the EFT, I felt it was creative and nuanced and flexible, and you can incorporate so many things into it. And I loved that there was something physical in it. So you're tapping on meridian points on your face as you're saying statements. And I love that I get to follow my intuition. This is what I love. Anybody can say, I'm struggling with this. We can find something that comes up from the fear. I'm also thinking that I was at a conference where I spoke at, and a guy came up to me and said, I'm not afraid of speaking, but I used to be a mountain biker, and suddenly I'm afraid to do mountain biking. And he said, I'm also afraid of driving in certain situations. So I just talking to him in the hall, I said, well, where do you think that came from? He said, well, there was this one experience where I was like super exhausted coming home from a family vacation, and I was driving with everyone in the car, and something about the light, and it was raining, and there was a tunnel coming up, and all of a sudden my vision went weird, and I couldn't trust what I was seeing. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to kill us.
Wow.
And I pulled over to the side of the road and, just took a moment, a long moment, until I felt like I was calmed down. And he said, but ever since then, I'm afraid of, driving anywhere, like if driving up a hill and you don't see the horizon is at the top of the road. And he said, and then I realized I'm afraid of mountain biking now. So I said, well, let's just do some EFT on that one experience. So we did. And then a couple of months later, he sent me pictures from his next mountain biking trip.
Oh, I just got chills. Something so profound like that, though, that's such a great story because it ripples into so many different areas of your life and your career and your family and your communication. And again, I love the simplicity of something as simple as EFT tapping
Yeah.
can clear that energy.
Yeah. But I don't like anymore just doing that. Like I sometimes I do just leave it at that. But when I work with people, I like to do what I call a coda. And the coda is a 3 or 4 different techniques, further techniques. Because as I said, I like a multimodality approach. So then I do a visualization of having like this magical elixir rinse through our body and rinsing away the debris. I just like that. It speaks to me. I imagine people seeing the incident on a postcard in pencil, drawn in pencil, black and white. And then the postcard recedes away. I used to do cutting cords. Some people like cutting cords. I do have that in my program if people want to listen to that audio and use it, but I don't use it when I work with people live anymore. And then I love, as I just mentioned earlier, speaking to our younger selves,
Yeah.
acknowledging them, telling them how we love them and admire them and are proud of them and appreciate them for what they were able to do at the time. And then it's interesting, just on intuition, working with my last cohort, I had them having the child speak to the older adult, that you, and saying how proud they are of what you've become
Oh, oh,
and
that's
how
beautiful.
amazing you are. And one of my students said, I've never related to talking to my younger child, but when my younger self spoke to me, I that just like blew my heart open. And I got that from my husband actually. He said one time that he was playing around with blessing his future self, sending good energy to all of whoever he will be, so that at any moment he can receive that energy from his younger self.
Oh, oh, that's stunning. Oh my gosh. I have like all the feels right now. What a beautiful reframe. I know we often go back and look at our younger self, but we're every day we are our younger self.
Yes, yes. And this is what I love. As I mentioned the word before, creativity, I really believe that healing is creative. It must be creative. And when you think of all the healing modalities, someone created them.
Right.
So, like in my book, chapter 4 is like how to get into all of the root causes. And I give lots of examples of different things that might have happened to you. And it's not complete, but it's a wonderful start. And then chapter 5, I have healing modalities. And at the end, I say how to create your own because mine are, I just use my favorite things, but you may have your favorite things. I don't do EMDR. I don't do, well, I do kind of a self hypnosis, but I'm not trained as a hypnotist or a hypnotherapist, I should say. Um, I had one client who's a songwriter, and he used to write songs for everything that came up. He would write a song.
Wow.
Someone else wrote poems. So, and then I had clients who said, I said, okay, now you're going to create your own ritual. People would collect stones with all their past experiences, throw them into the lake or the river or the sea. People would write them down on pieces of paper, put them in the fireplace, into the fire, or throw sticks into the woods. Or dance it out.
The thing with modalities is, and I find this a lot with women, is that we're afraid to do it wrong. And this comes back to something you said earlier, is we're afraid to make a mistake. Like our healing path, we're gonna do it the wrong way. And and what I love about the way that you're explaining this is, there are some tricks. There are some techniques. There are some things out there that you can try, but you can also just fucking make it up.
Yes.
Right? Like you can make like whatever feels good for you. I love burning things safely, of course. I that is to me is very therapeutic. Movement, grounding, getting my feet on the actual physical ground. Yelling really loudly in my car when I have unexpressed anger that wants to come up, right? Like I just let my body do what it wants to do safely, of course. And it gets to be that easy. I always tell my clients and my listeners, like, let it be easy. It doesn't have
Mm,
to be this 10-step, 14-week, whole rigmarole unless that's what you feel called to. If you just want to go outside and stomp on the ground and yell for like 3 minutes, do that. I mean, you will clear things so quickly when you allow your body and your mind to do what it wants to do.
yeah.
You've been sharing some really great stories, and I feel called to share this too. Uh, I'm a full-time speaker now. That is my life. Getting to that point has been quite a journey of its own. I didn't seek out to be a speaker, but it's always been part of my calling. Now that I look back in my life, I can see where it's been present the entire time. But stepping into, I'll use your words, the limelight has been a challenge up until this point, and it still has some threads from time to time because growing up, my mother and I's relationship was fractured at best. And I can remember a time it was always Laura, be quiet, Laura, not so loud. I don't want to hear you. If I did voice an opinion, it was often met with anger or you're wrong or you're grounded, like, right, like very harsh shutdown. But I can remember a moment specifically. We were driving down the road, a Bon Jovi song came on, right? This is early 90s at this point, and I just wanted to wail, right? I just felt so connected to the song in the moment. And I threw my head back. I remember it so distinctively. We were in a green car, green Nissan. And I threw my head back and I'm just wailing. And she turns the music off and says, Laura, that is too fucking loud. Nobody wants to hear that.
Mm,
And I remember just like shrink wrap in heat, just crumbling,
mm-hmm.
just completely shutting down. And it took me a really long, I suppressed that memory. I had no memory of that memory until I started to do some inner work and inner child healing. And then it presented itself. And I'm like, it's no wonder that
Mm,
I have been so hesitant to speak up, to use my voice, to be seen, to be loud, to be heard. It was never safe for me.
right.
It was never safe. And so I've had to work on and rewire my own safety and creating that within me. But what I also want to share here is it's not perfect either. So when I put something up on TikTok, for instance, especially when I take a stance on something, right? Right now we're living in a very vocal political climate, and I have really leaned into my gutsiness to take a stance on who I am and what I believe in. And even moments when I use my voice to take a stance on something big or little, and I get that pushback, right? People I call them keyboard warriors, where they just lash out at you and they say all these terrible things. I have to still take a moment, acknowledge and see what's being said, and then reject it, push it away. I'm not absorbing that. That's not my story, right? That's not my stuff. So I just want everyone to hear and know that you can also do the work. But if it's not quote unquote perfect, it doesn't mean that you've done it wrong. It's multifaceted.
Well, the other thing that we're talking about different kinds of environments too.
Right.
So when I talk about, let's say, speaking up at a meeting, you can have people sitting around the table who are, great colleagues. You can also have people sitting around the table who are competitive or mean-spirited. Your environment is going to make a huge difference. So when we feel, I mean, the easiest way to determine that we have stuff to clear away is that the environment is friendly, more or less, and we are prepared, but we still are afraid. But what you're describing here is an unfriendly environment. And yes, it does take it's not like you are not able to speak up in public, you are, but what you're doing is you're navigating toxicity.
Right.
And that's a skill. It's a skill, and you're building that by the whatever technique that you're doing. I mean, one of the things that I've thought a lot about this too, and in my TikTok talk that I've done at Podfest conference the last couple of times is describe some of the things that I now use for comments that are less than favorable. So I I described when we before we got on that I had a couple of TikToks go viral, and one of them was something I threw up on the platform without really thinking. It was a 30-second video, and it was basically, if you feel comfortable speaking in public, probably you had a background where people listened to you, and what you had to say was respected. And if you didn't, if you feel uncomfortable speaking in public, you probably were led to believe that you weren't okay to say what you did, or something like that. This got 3.5 million views,
Oh my goodness.
3,000 comments. And as I glanced through them, 3/4 of them, or even more, maybe 80%, were like, oh my God, this is so me. And then it was like, this is total bullshit. I didn't have parents that were kind to me, and I feel comfortable speaking, or whatever. And it was interesting because people who were pleased by it, felt seen, were defending me. And they would say, oh, Linda wasn't saying that. She wasn't denying that. She's just saying, it was interesting. I didn't even have to say anything. But it gave me a curiosity of how do we handle negative feedback, because I have a book writing coach who says, don't ever look at your reviews or any reviews that are below 4 on Amazon. And I'm thinking, I don't know if, oh, I don't have any that are below 4, luckily, but I don't know if I agree with that, because I feel like I want to get in front of what people are saying. And maybe they're bots. Maybe they just have a different opinion, and they feel like it's important for them. So I have a list of a few things that I say. Some I'll ignore, absolutely. Some I'll say, thank you for sharing your opinion. It takes guts to do that.
Yeah.
Or I'll say, I appreciate you taking time to respond.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes people are perhaps being sincere, but they're just, don't realize that they're being harsh. And I want to acknowledge them for, like, it's okay. It's okay. And what I like about that is it allows me to feel less ruffled.
Right. And you don't absorb it.
And I don't absorb it. No.
That's the biggest thing that I've had to learn, is whether it's online or in person, is that it only gets to mean something if I make it mean something.
In fact, I think it makes a great post. It's like, oh, really loved looking at the comments. And I put all these wonderful ones. And then the third one says, this is BS.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think that's how you know when you're getting to a place where you are healing and you're truly moving on, is when that stuff more beads up and bounces off
Yeah.
versus absorbs in there. I'm not perfect. I still have moments where, one will seep in, but for the most part now I'm just like, gosh, I don't know what that person has going on in their life, but I wish them well. I don't have to make that my stuff.
Right, right. Well, I'm not putting out my political views so much. So I think that there's some that goes with the territory
Right.
as well.
Right.
And we know that right now it's just such a hot button topic. And I really would love to see us diffuse that. I'm not sure exactly how to do it. I've had a couple of people on my podcast where we've focused on how to have civil conversations during the political divide. And I just feel like, oh, we're just like, it's not hardly even scratching the surface of what we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, it is a hot button, and it's kind of like an open wound right now, I think, and it will take time. There's a lot of work to be done all around.
Well, now I can't wait to look at your TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little over 100,000 at this point in the comments, Woo, you want to go on a journey? Just take a little scroll down through the comments.
I will do that. I'm very curious. And then maybe we can have another conversation about it when I actually see what you're dealing with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Linda, I just adore talking to you. I really feel like I could just spend a day with you and just absorb all that amazing energy that you put out. I want to make sure everyone knows where to connect with you. So, what's the best place to find and connect with you?
If you Google Linda Ugelow, Ugelow, you'll find me wherever I am. So it's my website, it's my TikTok, it's LinkedIn, it's on Amazon. You'll find me and my book.
Perfect. Yes. So, to say, we'll make sure that we link your book in the show notes as well. And I've got to know, what does gutsy mean to you?
Ah, it means like feeling full of yourself and you just can't hold it in.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I've not heard that answer and I just love every ounce of it. Linda, thank you so much for sharing this time and space with us. Thanks for helping people to speak more confidently and just being who you are.
This has been a joy. Thank you.
I could seriously listen to Linda talk all day long. She has such a soothing energy and voice that just makes it so comforting. Listen, make sure that you grab a copy of her book, Delight in the Limelight. I've put the link in the show notes below. And I'd love to know what came up for you today. Did you have any aha moments or realizations of where this fear might be stemming from? If you did, shoot me a DM. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can find me using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.